Welcome to Shorty Supercoach, and I've had an absolute howler to start this video recording. I just did 10 minutes of it off the top and went to stop the visual record, went to stop the audio, and I hadn't pressed record on the sound. So, had some zingers in there too. Oh, I was flying, had some good content there, but nope, that will never be heard by anyone. So I'll now try and just remember how I introduced it. Yeah, we're in the lounge room today, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody's home. So I thought, why not? I'm just here. Oh, I forgot I put my dinner in there too. I'm a rabble at the moment. I'm all over the shop. I put my dinner in there 5 minutes ago. Forgot that it was on. So I'll smash this video out and eat some dinner. Finished work just before, and no one was home. I think one of my housemates, he's got a wedding in Byron Bay. Another one of them's moving to Melbourne, so he's in the midst of doing that. And I think Watto, who often appears on the old live stream, is in Warrnambool at the moment. So there you go. There you go. Now, just a little shout out to the old, if you want to do some footy tipping with me, feel free. I've put a few links in over the journey. I'll probably try and put one in here as well, and the SuperCoach Group is flying as well. I also want to just give a bit of a shout out to a couple of Facebook pages that have really helped me a lot this pre-season by allowing me to post on their site. So I just wanted to thank them, and it's been a really good pre-season of content and engagement from you guys, which I've been absolutely stoked about. So I just wanted to give these pages a bit of a shout out to just say get around them. There's some great community involvement, plenty of discussion. So if you're looking for a place for information or somewhere to vent or have a chat about SuperCoach, they are a couple of good spots. And just wanted to give them some love because it definitely helps me reach a few different people with my content by using their platform too. So I appreciate that. What else was I talking about before? I don't think there was much. But yeah, look, these videos, just a way of me covering absolutely any prick that you could think could be somewhat relevant. If they're in 2% of teams, 5%, 24%, I'll talk about them. As long as they're in 2% of sides, someone out there's just thinking about them. It's some sort of indication that maybe there's like 3 people who watch my channel who go, oh, you haven't mentioned anything about this guy. He's unique. I want to hear your thoughts. So in the description, in the comments, there'll be timestamps because it could be a lengthy video. But we've done it with the defenders and midfielders. Got plenty of vids coming out in the lead up to round 1. Flat chat, which is great, but I'm just trying to organise it. I reckon we'll be going double time. I reckon it'll be 2 videos a day most days. So stay tuned. We'll go live on Tuesday as well. 24 hours out from the bounce. I don't know when I'll do it, 7 o'clock or something. Who knows? Whenever it is. Probably be more like 8:30 actually. I'll watch 360 and then probably get into it. But enough ramble from me. Let's get stuck into it. Look at this. I was all the way down to Jordan to Goey because I fucking talked for 10 minutes without recording. Oh shit. And my dinner's getting cold. Oh goodness me. Back to Josh Dunkley. Now, look, he's a lock, straightforward, plain and simple. I don't think I have to say too much about Josh. I think any query we had on his relevance or spot in our SuperCoach side was maybe some form of positional stuff leading into the Pracky games, but he's been absolutely outstanding, and I think he's an absolute lock. I think you got the 3 big guns here, Duncan, Taranto, and Dunkley. I'm happy to just go with one of them because I think the other 2, which I'll talk about in a second, have their reasons to leave him out. And for Mitch Duncan, it's his body. He's touch and go for round 1, so that's enough for me. Calf injury, the old man injury, it's not ideal. He'll be a gun, he'll be a star when he's fit and firing, but I think we can potentially get a slowish start from him. There's always a chance when people have interrupted pre-seasons that happens, so more than happy to leave him out. I'm also comfortable to leave Tim Taranto out, reason being that I know he played pretty well in that Pracky game the other day, but any time that there is talk that he could play a bit more forward because we've got Green out for 5 weeks, we've got Daniels out as well, there has to be a chance that he just, even if there's, a couple of games where he's not quite at his best, I still think he'll have good numbers. I just don't think they'll be his maximum numbers because when he gets right in that midfield, doing his thing, when Toby Green's back in town and all that, I think we'll see his absolute best. So just trying to play the percentages. If there's any chance throughout the year that he might be a touch off, I think it's a good chance to play the odds that in the first 5 weeks we could see the odds 70 or something like that. So I know he played quite well the other day, but I'm comfortable to leave him out. Tommy Hawkins, he's in 2% of sides. We love Tommy as a Cats man, but, key forwards and that, we know even in their prime that they're a bit up and down, and Hawkins is tribute to that. And let's face it, he's only getting another year older, and he's even through his best years, he's been up and down with the SuperCoach stuff. So we love Tommy at Catland, but probably not for your SuperCoach side. And I feel similar with Jake Stringer. Great end to the year last year, sort of at the centre bounce, exploding out of there. Delivered some really good numbers, but he's only done it the once. And I think it's just a massive risk to go with a guy that just doesn't really have the runs on the board. We're paying a fair bit of coin. And he's touch and go for round 1 as well. So all that goes into the melting pot, and it's a definite no for me on Stringer. And that's reflected in his ownership. I think where we should be more keen, and it is being well reflected, is Dustin Martin. Now, 33% of sides, and for good reason. He looked great. The pracky matches, almost pure midfield. Definitely, you got to be somewhat cautious with his body. He's missed a lot of footy. It was a pretty severe injury, but Dusty's a gun. We know what he's about. He looked like he's really defined role in that midfield, which is great news for us. He ain't going to lay a tackle. That's what just pisses me off about Dusty, is that he'll win you back with his beautiful foot skills and that, but Jesus, the bloke hates to tackle, I tell you what. But, he's a star. He actually represents a bit of value too, I reckon, with a couple of injury-affected games last year. So he's not in my team at the moment, but there is definite merit to say, look, he's probably offering a bit of value, and he's a top 6 forward, I think. So definitely a lot to think about there. What's Benny McAvoy in 2% of size? What are we doing there? Adam Treloar, 17% of teams. Now, I think I'm a massive fan of what he can do when he's on the park, and he's found a really nice rhythm at the Dogs now. He's winning the ball in the midfield, finishing off nicely. In the goal department, he's certainly not playing that Collingwood role where he's inside mid all the time, but he's playing quite a nice role for the Dogs, which is really showing off his attributes. But what is turning me off is the body. That's what I've got the issue with. He's had those soft tissue injuries, and they are recurring, like you've seen. He's played 8 games and 13 games the last couple of years. So I think, given that, he probably is a touch underpriced. I think when he's fit and firing at his best, he averages in the mid-90s. But I just feel like there's a very slim chance that he plays all 22 games, and therefore I'm sort of like, well, what am I going to start with him for? Because I'll likely pick him up at some stage. You'll probably get a little niggle or something like that. I'm pretty comfortable to just leave him be. So that's my thoughts on Treloar. I do think he's a very damaging player, and I wouldn't mind having him in the team at some stage in the year, but very comfortable to not start him. Tim English, well, he's been the rave. Definitely a guy who's pressed his claim pretty nicely through the practice games. Looked great, 21 touches, looked bulky as well. Definitely, I think any time you see a ruckman really develop like that, you take notice. He's in 9% of teams, but he's probably not for me, and that's because I still feel like the Dogs are going to share that ruck duty. It might not always be Steph Martin because he's sort of struggling at the minute, it would seem, but it could be Jordan Sweet. But I'll tell you what, if there was ever an injury or a indication that Tim English is the main guy in there on his own, well, he could definitely take it next level. But I just think, and look, Timmy's hurt me in the past, once bitten, twice shy for old Shorty. He's definitely hurt me a couple of years back, but I think it's a tasty option with his dual position status and available in the forward line as mainly a ruck, but just not enough to win me over just yet. All right, nice. Definitely recorded at that time. That's an improvement. No, I didn't actually. It's funny when you do it twice. I got to Goey the first time, didn't get to him the second time. Don't know what I did there, but anyway, Jordan Goey. Now he's had an indifferent preseason, hasn't he? But look, in terms of the football stuff, practice game, I felt like we didn't quite see the Jordan Goey that ended the season in stellar form. A bit like Stringer, he had a fantastic back end of the year, but I felt like it was more of a split between, or a pretty even split of midfield and forward in the practice game. A Pies fan who watched a bit closer than me might be able to tell me otherwise, but I probably, if I was thinking about picking Goey, he probably didn't show you what you wanted to see. You know, he had such a Supercoach friendly role in the second half of last year, which is why, you know, he's drawing attention, and if he can find that and capture that, then he's got value to him as well. But we probably didn't see it. So it's always been about position for Goey. You know, when he's in that midfield role, winning the ball at ease, you know, and playing a key role in there, then he's clearly, like most players, going to be scoring more points. But he can go a bit cold when he is forward, and just didn't really put his best foot forward through the pracky game from what I saw. So I think, you know, sort of the opposite to English, where English attracted a bit more attention. Probably Goey just cooled off a touch. So, and we've got this like cluster of sort of forwards between 440 and 480 sort of thing that could be anything. And Zac Bailey is one of those. I think he could be a beneficiary of the extra midfield time that they look to be giving to some, not younger players, but next generation players at the Lions. You know, Jared Lyons seems to be the guy that is going to take a bit of a backward step in terms of centre bounce attendance. And Bailey and McCluggage and maybe even Berry, they could definitely reap the rewards of that. So I still feel like Bailey has such a great contribution with his craft in the forward line that there's still a massive pull to start him there at times for Chris Fagan. So it's not for me. It wouldn't shock me if he came out and played some amazing footy, because he's a game breaker, different type of player. Like, he can impact games with 18 touches, which we know SuperCoach will reward that. But I'm just happy to spend my pennies elsewhere for now and watch on and see what he does. But I think one day he could definitely be a genuine premium that we talk about. Same said for Tarryn Thomas. He's silky smooth, and I think his foot skills and his ability through traffic. But again, he probably falls in that category of, I like him. If he played well in the practice games, all of a sudden he's got my attention. I know we shouldn't put too much emphasis on pracky games, but when you're sort of on the fence, and you guys probably know what it's like, when you touch and go with a guy, you're sort of like, well, if he really shows me what he can do, and he's looking fit and firing, looking like he's ready for an absolute stellar year, then I'm on board. But if I don't see it, then maybe not. So I feel like some of these guys had to convince us for their spot. You know, there's someone like Jack Steele. He didn't have to convince us. He wasn't that good, but we know what he does. Some of these guys were almost on trial, giving us another audition that they were ready to take it next level. And Thomas probably didn't quite do that, but it wouldn't surprise me if he came out and averaged 90 plus pretty easy. Shai Bolton, he's a ripping talent. Probably didn't get as much midfield time as I anticipated. Probably felt that he would be a more regular cog in that Richmond midfield. Still will be to an extent, but he does some special things. Like, he really does. I don't know if he's quite going to be our most reliable Supercoach option just yet. He threatens to be almost every year for the last couple, but it's just something that sort of says, no, it's just a touch risky, you know. So I'm happy to leave him out for now, but he's got that X factor, he's got that game-changing ability like a few of these guys have. And we know if they come out and have fantastic years, then they're going to have some amazing Supercoach scoring potential. But to start with them, probably a touch risky, particularly in the forward line. Like I was talking about it when I did this video for the defenders, you know, we got to look at a lot of defensive options because we need premiums down there. Probably in the forward line, we've got some value. So we're probably happy to only go with a couple of premiums maybe, and maybe Coniglio at F3 or something like that, depending how he's shaping up. So, and look, Isaac Heeney and 21% of sides. I'm sorry, Isaac. I got a bit scared, mate. I got a bit scared when you went to the forward line. I know Papley was out. I know Franklin was out. But it just worries me. As soon as anything goes wrong with that Sydney forward six, Isaac Heeney's Mr. Fix-It. You know, oh shit, take him out of the midfield. We'll put Heeney there because he's such a good player. That just worries me. Again, I was watching him super close. All I needed to see was consistent centre bounce attendance and midfield time. And as soon as Franklin wasn't playing, and I knew Papley wasn't, obviously, I thought, well, shit, I'm not going to get a proper representation here, am I? So I needed to see the evidence. I needed to see it. Didn't get a chance to, so I got cold feet and I went elsewhere. But again, a bit like what I said with Taranto, when Papley comes back into the lineup, and if Heeney does really shift to that almost genuine midfield position that we were promised, we were told, like we've been told before, then he could be one of the best forward options we've got. But I didn't want to start him, see him play forward, score 72 and 86, and be like, well, you should have known. You've fallen for this dumb trap before. I was about to go off my nut at myself for something I haven't even done yet. But you know what I mean. Where are we? Zak Butters, I think he just picks himself. He did the opposite to what the last 4 or 5 guys I've talked about did. We were looking for those midfield times and good games through the practice period, and he did exactly that. So he's a lock in my opinion, and should be a good ride with Butters throughout 2022. Jeremy Cameron in 3% of teams. Could win the Coleman. Could have some ripping games. Not for your SuperCoach team. And this is where, we sort of start to... Harry Mackay, 2% of teams. I don't think I'm going to give him too much love. Again, a bit like Cameron, could win the Coleman. Not going to win you too many leagues in your SuperCoach. We've probably got through the bulk of the guys. We sort of had to... Which we do in all positions like no man's land. Even Weller, I know he's in 1% of size, but a few people would have seen me have him the other day, and he was high on my watch list to just see what position he ran with. Just wasn't exactly what I was looking for. Wasn't the go-to guy out of defence. Like he sort of seemed like he was in that initial practice game. Had to put my own eyes on it, watch it. Didn't like what I saw, so he came out pretty quickly. Rozee at 400k. He, again, could just be a superstar this year or in 2024. Who knows when. We've been waiting for a while. And we shouldn't say waiting. He's played some ripping matches. But I just feel like until we see it consistently, I don't think we can start with him. And he's so awkwardly priced. Again, he is a fella with huge potential. We've got a lot of these mid-forward options that could be anything, They're sort of building, and this could be their year. Or it could be 2023, you know what I mean? So let's wait and see what they do. Let's jump on board if we need to. But until we see it, a lot of these guys, I'm just a bit sheepish to start with. Luke Jackson is a guy that's remained around that sort of 8 to 12% mark for most of the pre-season period, and I think most of the eyes were on Jackson coming into it. Then they shifted to Gawn, and then we were so impressed with Gawn, we just brought back the Gawn and Grundy option. That's pretty much been the main factor. I mean, Jackson will still develop well. He'll still build on those numbers. But I just don't think there's any need to go with him to start with. If you're looking for some dual position flexibility, all right, fair enough. But I don't think it's really enough to select him to start with, in my opinion. So I'm happy to leave him out, watch him develop, and again, see what he could be. But I don't think this is the year that he moves into premium status. Okay, what do we got here? Charlie Cameron just gets 3% of sides out of probably just fanboyism. I mean, he's awesome to watch, but not for our SuperCoach team. Bailey Fridge. He'd need a few more bags of 7, I think, to be relevant in the SuperCoach world. Callum Sinclair, 2% of teams. It's funny to see. I know 2% is nothing, but it just suggests that more than just, those real random ones, most are 0 and 1. You're sort of like, I wonder, there's someone out there going, actually, I think they're a good option. So hopefully I'm not too dismissive of these ultimate PODs, but let's keep scrolling through. A bit more key forward love for Max King. I mentioned and spoke to Rioli in the defensive line if you wanted to check him out there if you're interested. And I think most of the interest really does come under 300k for our forward line as we've spoken about so often this year. There's been a fair bit of value. And one of them to discuss is coming up right now in Jade Gresham. And I think for Gresh, he's fantastic for the Saints, offers that really dynamic finishing ability in the forward line and is so exciting for the Saints fans, but not for us in what we need to see. I feel like, again, he was on trial through the practice games. We wanted to see him waltz into that centre bounce a little more. He was always starting the forward six. There has to be questions about his fitness. Not that he's unfit, but just to fully unleash himself in the midfield like he was doing prior to that injury. He might build up to it. He might get to it some stage. I don't think we should start with him. And I feel like 17% of sides is too much. But, yeah, I just feel like he could hurt us. And he's cheap, but not dirt cheap. I think it's definitely better for us to scroll a little bit further, save a bit of coin on some guys that could score just as much or even outscore him potentially. What else have we got here? I think Cam Rayner's coming up in a sec. There he is, Cam Rayner. So, look, we really needed to see him one more time, didn't we? Just wanted to see how he went, how he fitted into what is a really busy Brisbane midfield. There's a lot of guys in there. And for me, a bit like Heeney, well, it was almost like no performance, didn't see him. I needed to see something. You had to show me why I should pick you. Because you haven't done it before, you're coming off a massive injury, there's a lot going on in that Brisbane midfield. I needed to see it. Now it's very speculative, and for me, it's a no thanks. I reckon he's got massive potential, he's explosive, him and Bailey share similar qualities, and I think Brisbane need that in the midfield, but I'm happy to, like I said, there's some options a bit cheaper that I just felt a little bit more confident with. Archie Perkins in 3% of teams. Now, I think he's a bit of a boom player. I think he played a pretty good game the other day and has got a few people's attention, but I just think he's going to be super inconsistent. We'll see games where it's, he shows us exactly why he was a high pick, and then there'll be games where he shows us exactly why he's a young player still finding his feet, and he isn't playing a massive role in the key part of the ground. Like, we know how many midfielders the Bombers have running through there, so I think he's going to have lots of fluctuations in his scoring, and I think that's a bit of a concern. So I'm, comfortable to kind of keep moving past him, but he should be a guy that we talk about more and more as he develops into his career. Kadeem Coleman, I mentioned, the defensive one, but obviously he's out for a long, long time, so you put a line through him. Coniglio, lock. It's as simple as that. 70% is about as high as I think I've ever seen ownership, so what are 30% of you bastards doing? Come on. I don't know how those numbers work. People just must fill out like half a team and it just counts to it. I don't know. Mitch McGovern in 10% of teams. Hasn't he been interesting? And it's a no from me. It's a no from me. Look, intercepting possession, nice little roll down back, can take a mark. Okay, I hear where you're coming from. But, nah, I just don't see it happening. I think he'll make some nice money. He will. If he was the only guy between 200 and 300, all right, yeah, I could justify picking him, but I still think there's some guys south of him that are better options. I just think McGovern has some injury concerns, but I just think by nature he's an inconsistent player. I think that he's a guy that's going to have us 1 week, intercepts a fair bit, great. Then the next could have a very much more responsible role for a forward and does next to nothing. So I'm quite happy to leave him out of my team, but he has been a guy that's been a bit of buzz, off the back of having that position filled. It was a lot of talk that he would, and he did, and he played quite well. So credit to him. I hope he turns his career around. But for now, I'm happy to just leave it be. 0% of teams, but Connor West should have some really nice games early on if he takes that chance as an Eagles mid. Just a little bit of interesting stuff there. Tyson Stengle, 5% of teams. Super excited as a Cats fan. I don't think we should start with him. He's going to be inconsistent. He's going to have days where he kicks 3 or 4, lays lots of tackles, and he's also going to have days where he struggles to get 10 or 12 possessions. So he'll be a roller coaster ride. Could have some massive games and a massive save for the Cats' chances of going deep, but it's a no thank you in terms of the SuperCoach world. Riccardi and Jamari Uhagen, a couple of percent of sides, but they're young, rising key forwards. But again, there's no need to select them. We've got plenty of options between the 200 and 300 marks, so let's just keep rolling there. And Willie Rioli's been a guy that has sort of been in that conversation at times, but I think he's just never been my cup of tea. He's never really shown a scoring ability. He's missed a massive amount of footy, and unless there was some sort of change in role, which some people had mentioned, but I've always not been too interested. I think he's a very clever player, very important player for the Eagles when he's at his best, but I just think, I know he had some good scoring games in the last few matches he played, but the Eagles are a very different team since then, and Willie Rioli could be a very different player. You know, he's missed so much footy, there's so much risk, and as we'll talk about in a second, there's so many options just below him that I think are better. One of those options is not Charlie Curnow. I think quite simply, key forward, long-term injury, inconsistency will have to come. Look, it's a no from me. If he was flying through the preseason, he might have pricked my ears, but he's not. So yeah, it's quite simply a no from me. Will Brodie, I'm really interested to see the Dockers team. I wish Fife had have played that last practice game because I just wanted to get a look at how the Dockers were shaping up with all of them in there. Mundy, Sarong, Brayshaw, Fife and Brodie, you know, and anyone else that floats through there. I want to pick him. I do. I feel like he does have a really clear, defined role and an important one for the Dockers. But there's also part of me that says the Dockers back pretty deep in there now. I mean, this is a guy that didn't get a game for Gold Coast at stages. So what's he doing coming into Fremantle? You know, what's changed? So I'm happy to go with him for the moment, but there's just a smidgen of me that says he could be a trap. But we're not paying too much, so and everything he has shown us has been amazing. Don't get me wrong, but just Fife coming back yeah. Anyway, I think he'll be a good pick. I do, but there's just a part of me that just gets a tiny bit worried. And we'll probably just round it out with Tristan Xerri and Hugo Ralphsmith, which I think I might do a separate video on these 3 or 4 guys around that price, but Xerri could be anything. If he is their number one ruck for most of the time, this guy could be one of our best money makers for the year. Or he could be out of the team by round 3. So that's what sort of got me. You know, Callum Coleman-Jones is lurking in the background. He could play pure key forward. Part of me also thinks that Goldstein's just not a forward, so this experiment won't last too long. And then part of me thinks that no, Xerri's the future, so they're going to develop him in the role because he's the future now. So he's smashed some massive numbers in the VFL at times, this bloke. So he could be anything, and his practice game was super impressive. So I want to go with him at the moment, but just going to have to wait and see. So I would love to hear Noble just come out and say something that just gives me a little bit of confidence, or read something, or even just if when the teams are announced and he's next to the R, you know, he's the ruck that gets named, you know, that might be enough just to push me over the line. But if he is first ruck, there's a lot of points to be had. And Hugo Ralphsmith, we'll just finish on. I think if he can be best 22, again, he is in a pretty nice potential role to score. Halfback flank, high marks, high kicks, you know, pretty chill back there, you know, just chipping it around with Jaden Short, waxing. I think he could average really nice numbers, but again, I feel like he could be out of the team in a couple of weeks if, you know, if Lostom comes back and if Gibcus sort of locks himself in and Grimes is floating around, you know, who misses out? You know, they've got Broad, they've got Rioli, they've got Short. That's probably like 6 or 7 defenders already named. So where does he fit in? So if Tigers fans, if you're out there, let me know. Is this bloke in your best 22 when everyone's fit and firing? I'd love to know, because if he is, and he looked really impressive when he played throughout the practice games, but is it his time now, or is he still doing the apprenticeship and he's going to be in and out of that team? So I'll have to wait and see. We'll know in 3 or 4 days, or whenever I end up posting this. We'll know pretty soon when the teams come out for Thursday night, which I can't wait for. I'll be there. But yeah, that is a wrap. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. I'm going to get stuck into some food. That is probably cold by now, because I reckon I heated that up about 20 minutes ago or something like that. But Yeah, much appreciated your support. If you haven't subscribed already, I would love you to. But the fact that you're here listening is enough for me. So I really appreciate it. It's a busy time at the moment, so I'm looking forward to getting all the videos that I can out and then taking a deep breath and heading away to Melbourne for a few nights to go to about 3 games of footy. So that's going to be great. Again, appreciate all your support. I'll be back soon and I'll chat to you then. Cheers.